All right. Well, welcome to the podcast. We are excited. Today's actually a special one because we are recording live. We are here at actually one of our Business Bubbly events. We have a handful of girls that are here with us as well. And we are, first of all, we are at like the cutest salon.
Oh my gosh.
Ever.
This is adorable.
Le Petit Salon. Kim, she's actually our Orange County chapter director. She's opened up the space for us, which is amazing. And I have a really special guest, one of my girls, Tori Kruse. She is not only a good friend, but she is an amazing stylist to major influencers and especially to faith-based Christian women, but obviously she's going to style any of us girls. But Tori really loves to equip and empower women to show up confidently no matter what room they're walking into, and to allow their external, how they dress, how they show up, really not only match the inside, but also with their brand, which is really, really relevant for us as women in business. So Tori, thanks for being here.
I'm so excited. This is so fun to do a live podcast and just like actually have people in the room. Normally it's just, you know, earlier today when I'm doing podcasts, it's just we're sitting there talking into mics, you know, and just imagining an audience. So it's really awesome to actually have women in the room. And thank you so much for having me. And I want you to also share what you do and your passions and your business, because what you do with Business Bubbly is like nothing else. And the community that you've created of women is so powerful. And I know there's just going to be thousands of chapters worldwide. And so for my listeners, I also just want you to briefly tell them a little bit about yourself and Business Bubbly and what you do and the amazing things, you know, that you're doing, because they need to know about you.
Yeah. So Business Bubbly, I'm the founder, and it really actually started from a small seed of an idea of actually just really craving that in-person connection and not just like boring beige conference rooms with salty salesmen passing out their business cards. And I actually just really wanted to create a space where I could show up fully as my favorite self and make genuine connections with other women in business who loved the different things like marketing and social media. And they have, you know, it's not just a side hustle, like it is a passion project for them and when it comes to their business. And I think for us as women in business, we are multifaceted, right? It's like, oh, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a recovering plant killer, I'm all of these different
I've heard recovering people pleaser before, but recovering plant killer is, I'm still a plant killer. Like I would like to say I have agreed with them, but that's a new one. And I'm here for it.
Hey, I love it. Well, you can have my,
I don't know, I can't. I still keep the plant alive, so I can't even say it yet.
You will.
Not to distract you from really the important thing at hand here, but I just had to point that out.
I mean, it's where the real work happens.
That's the internal work.
Where you can keep a plant alive, you can keep a kid alive.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, maybe that's why I don't have children yet. I gotta start with plants.
I'm going to send you a plant. It's going to be our love fern.
Yes, seriously.
I'm going to get you a plant.
If it stays alive, you know our friendship's for real. Like, I'm telling you, nothing.
I mean, if it dies, our friendship dies.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Okay, I'll keep it alive.
Okay,
I got this.
Okay.
Got
it. So anyways, besides
we have Jesus. That's awesome.
So besides recovering
all right,
so I wanted to keep friendships alive. See that segue?
This is what happens.
This is such a good segue. No, I really wanted to create those genuine connections and cultivate just those spaces where us as women, where we could come together and, you know, because like my mom friends, like that's great, and we can talk about the laundry and the poopy diapers and that kind of thing, but they don't understand the marketing or the social media, or I'm struggling with this in my business. What insight could you have? What perspective do you have? And so I wanted to create this space where I could show up and not only have those questions, have those struggles, but also be celebrated and celebrate other women in their business. And so lo and behold, Business Bubbly was born, and I put it out there on Instagram. A few weeks later, we had an event, 50 plus women showed up, and I was like, oh, this is a thing. And then women from California and Florida and all the Canada and all these different places started reaching out to me saying, oh, we see what you're doing, and it's really, really special. How do we get it where we are? So we've expanded into We have 10 chapters now, and I believe what you were saying one day with the hundreds and the thousands of chapters one day.
I skipped over hundreds. I went right.
You just went right for it. I love it.
I do. I just see this really huge vision for it because, you know, whether you're a wife and a mom and, you know, a business owner and combining all that, you know, I'm not married. I don't have children yet. You know, I don't have that, but I also, it's still something that's so valuable that every woman needs, that sense of community. And I think we were just talking about it here in this room right before. It's like we need that sense of community. And I think sometimes in business it can get really lonely. And the more that you can grow and like the higher that you get, sometimes it gets lonelier at the top, right? And like you can sometimes isolate yourself so easily, like through that stage of growth and through that stage of business. And it's so easy to just like, you start to lose your friendships a little bit because you start to prioritize, you know, your work and then your family. And then it's like, oh shoot, before you know it, you don't have friends.
Right.
And so it's really important to put yourself out there and get in rooms just like this that you've created with Business Bubbly, because it's so important to have community. Yeah. And so important to have other like-minded women around you at all times, so you can call them or, you know, say, hey, you want to come over and have some bubbly with me and let's just chat about real things in life. Yeah. And just to like be able to link arms with other women is so important. And so I love what you're doing with Business Bubbly. And I know we just got a chapter in Scottsdale, which is super exciting. So yeah, I love it.
Oh, thanks. It means a lot. So speaking of community, because I know obviously we met through community. So what would you say is like some benefits that you have noticed as a high achieving woman in business with an incredible business? What would you say, like, how has community been an unfair advantage for you above other people who, they're stylists, they're doing their thing too, but...
I love networking. I don't know about any of you, but like, I just love networking and creating that relationship capital, right? Yeah. And just developing and nurturing those relationships is so important. And so I have purposely stepped out and put myself in rooms. And I started out investing very little, you know, under $100 to get in a room, and now it's thousands, you know, I mean, and you start to just develop these relationships that are so life-giving. And people joke, and it's like, you kind of pay for friends. I'm like, yeah, I kind of did pay for friends, you know, but you sometimes have to, like, start to get in rooms that you want to level up in, that you want people to challenge you in, right? Yeah. In business and in life and personal growth, like you have to start investing in yourself. And I think that's a big thing with women is, you know, oftentimes it's hard to invest in ourselves. And once you just get over that hump and you realize that you are so worth it, like the best thing you can do is invest in yourself, because you may think that you don't have any time because you're pouring into your family, you're pouring into your business, but at the end of the day, you're not going to show up for your business, for your husband, for your kids in a way that you would be proud of if you're not first pouring into yourself in your own cup. And so that has been a huge thing for me, is even if it is a business sort of room, I also make sure that I talk about real life, personal things to develop that relationship capital. And then from a business standpoint, I mean, it's single-handedly the number one thing that's grown my business. I mean, I'll travel all over the world to events to get in front of new people or to meet new groups of people and just expand my network, because it's so valuable and it's so important. But then going a step further and really nurturing those relationships, not just like meet the people at the networking events, but then to actually nurture them and really start to support them and give value to them when necessarily you may not be getting value from them quite yet. Pour into others first and just give and give and give, and you will receive, right? Yeah. So networking, community, I mean, I could talk about that the whole entire podcast. I mean, there's so many different routes that we could go, because I mean, that's where we met, and it's so important.
Totally. I love that. And I love what you mentioned about the nurturing of relationships, because when it comes to connections, when it comes to networking, there's so much value. It's the long game, right? Like the ROI that comes from networking is the long game. Like, people come in and they think that networking is, oh, here's my business card and I'm just in and I'm just out, and they're flashing the pan and they're, you know, want to like exploit the group and whatever. And it's like, like that's not how it works. Like, you have to be in community, and community has to be in you for it to work. And the ROI will pay off years and years and years and years and years down the line. But if you actually can have that vision for the long game for community, then Oh man, the ROI is incredible. Like I have relationships that I've fostered and nurtured for over a decade, and they're just now starting to pay off, but they're paying off really.
That's something the hardest part, though. Truthfully, like, can we talk about how hard it is to even like, you invest in different communities and networks and things like that, and you think, okay, well, I invested X amount of dollars, but you really can't put a dollar sign on that because you never know when God's just going to bless you with that opportunity with that person, and just really. I've sometimes invested thousands of dollars into something, and then I'm like, shoot, totally did not get my money back on that sucker. And then here we go, like 6 months to 3 years plus later, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where did I meet that person? Oh, that's right, I met that person back at this event, and then now it's finally coming to life. So I think it's really easy to be like, well, that definitely wasn't worth it, but then it's like, all right, you got to be patient, and patience is not always the easiest. But, especially when you're putting your hard-earned dollars on the line for it, but it's always worth it. It's always worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to put intention. You have to put effort
into
it, right? You can't
energy.
You can't just show up. It can't be like I'm just like getting this gym membership and I'm never going to the gym and I'm expecting results. It's like, no, you have to actually.
Right. It's like, all right, you got
put it in work.
Yes. Yes. One of the biggest, and I always love sharing this when I'm talking about networking, because one of the best things that I ever did for a networking event, especially like in a really large room, if any of you have ever been to like a really large conference before and you're like, you feel like you're just just a number, right? Like there could be hundreds or thousands of people there and you're wanting to meet people, but you just don't know where to find them. One of the best things a mentor of mine gave to me, and I ended up doing, so I always like to share it, is I was at a Brendon Burchard conference in Austin, Texas. And there were thousands of people there. And I was like, all right, I definitely know there's some really incredible connections in this room, but there's so many people, it was almost overwhelming. Like, how am I supposed to meet the people that I feel like I'm here to connect with? And so my mentor told me, he said, all right, when you get to the hotel where it's being hosted there at the JW, there were 2 different restaurants. There was like a lunch cafe sort of spot, and then there was a nice steakhouse. He said, make a reservation at each of those places for lunch and dinner every single day. It was a 3-day, 4-day conference, something like that. So I walked to the hotel, checked in, went straight to this cafe, booked lunch for every single day. I think it was 4 days. And I booked lunch for 6 people every single day. I literally went to this conference by myself. I live in Arizona. I didn't know a single soul. And I'm like, I'm just going to make some friends and invite them to lunch so we can connect at a deeper level. So I made reservations for lunch, and then I went over to the steakhouse, and I made reservations for dinner. And I made up for like 4 one night, 6 one night. I was feeling really audacious with this one. I made it for 8 the last night. I was like, I'm going to have some friends by the end of this sucker. And so I was like, I'm going to have friends at this dinner, right? And so, so that's what I did. So I went up to the conference, and it actually like, by being so intentional in setting that really high expectation for myself, I mean, I was like scrambling come like 11:30. I was like, crap, I've not invited anybody to lunch. I did. And we're still like really close friends now. And she's actually in the fashion world too, which is like, she's a fashion influencer. And I had no clue. But it was a very like, you don't have to do it every single day, every lunch, every dinner. Like I didn't go like I'm a major extrovert, but also like made me feel very uncomfortable too because I didn't know anybody. So I majorly had to introduce myself. And then I would kind of like gauge. So I'm like, do I want to invite this person to lunch? Do I want to invite this person to dinner? You know,
6 chairs.
Yes, And so it was kind of like, speed dating or something. But so anyway, so I did do that. And I ended up, the last day at lunch, we had 12 people. I think I reserved it for 6 people like that we had 12 people who were like busting at the seams. And it was so cool because I invited random people and everybody was so receptive to it and they wanted to, people are craving connection. Yeah. Craving, especially after 2020. There's so much Zoom, there's so much virtual things, and people are craving connection. Yeah. And so when I would invite people to this, they're like, oh my gosh, absolutely. Like, I would love to come to lunch. Uh-huh. And they're like, who's coming? I'm like, I don't know. You'll find out when we sit down. I don't know who's coming. I just started to invite people. I stopped counting. I was like, we're going to find chairs. Like, I'll stand. I don't care. Like, let's just bring people together. And it was a really fun networking technique. We met people from all over the world who were there for that conference. And still to this day, are really close friends. And actually, Ali Aruda, who's a part of this event that we're going to tomorrow, she lives up in Canada. And she was one of the people that I met at this Austin event. And here we are in the same, like there's probably 60, 70 people going to be at this event tomorrow that we're attending. And she's one of the people, I just did a podcast with her earlier today. And it's just it's crazy small world. But I met her because I asked one of our mentors, Lori Harder, I was like, hey, you want to join us? And she's like, no, but I actually know somebody here that I think would love to join you. And it was Ali. So all that being said is sometimes you have to step way far outside of your comfort zone, do something that's completely different than what anybody else is doing. And then that's how you meet people. And that's how you're not going to become the best of friends with everybody who I invited. There are more people that I don't stay in touch with than I do. Yeah. But the people that I've stayed in touch with from that have just are quality friends that you can connect with and go do life with. So I share that story. Just it was a game changer. And I would always say, if you're going to an event, at least do it for like lunch or dinner one time.
It's so
and
smart.
Just see what happens.
It's so smart because then everyone else is also scrambling for lunch reservations.
Right, they were. Everybody. Nobody had a plan. There was one time where I was like, oh my God, I love your outfit. Someone that was a fashion influencer. I was like, I love your outfit so much. I was like, this might sound weird, but do you have dinner plans? And she was like, no, let's go. It was so random.
I love it.
We're still, she's one of my closest friends now, and she also lives in Texas. But yeah,
I love
it's
it.
awesome.
Okay, so speaking of showing up in rooms and confidently getting out of your comfort zone, so obviously you showing up in a way that gets you to stand out, that is representative of your brand, of your mission, of where you're going, of the vision that you have for yourself, for your business. Obviously, as a stylist, like that's what you do. So what tips would you say as far as showing up in rooms, whether you know people or not? Give us some goods on the style.
I got you. Okay, so like one of the biggest things is, has anybody in this room ever felt overwhelmed because of like what they're wearing to an event or how to show up? Is it like completely like overwhelming to walk in your closet? Yeah, everybody's shaking their head in the room. It is. It can be super overwhelming, but the one big thing that I always say that just hopefully reduces every single bit of overwhelm for your outfit is wear one conversation starter. Because really the purpose of your outfit is just to strike up a conversation. Yes, to feel confident, right? You want to feel good. You want to feel attractive. You want to feel great when you walk out the door. But just have one piece on your body that's a conversation starter. So instead of getting completely overwhelmed by your entire outfit, think to yourself, if there were two women who are walking down the sidewalk or walking to the bathroom, they're in this deep, deep conversation, and you come walking by, you want them to stop mid-conversation and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I gotta tell you, I love your pink shoes. Those pink shoes those are pink shoes, aren't they? They're phenomenal. This is a perfect example. Like your shoes are a conversation starter, right? Yeah. And so the point is you want to feel good, you want to feel hot, you want to feel confident when you walk out the door, but you really want that one piece on your body that's a conversation starter that somebody's going to stop and compliment you on, because that is one way to strike up a conversation. And we're all women in business here, so you want to strike up more conversations because it leads to more relationships, it leads to more sales. And so don't just say, oh my gosh, thanks so much, and keep walking. You actually want to stop and introduce yourself. And that's the thing that we just always talk about, where it's like, don't get overwhelmed by your outfit, looking on point, head to toe. Just have one thing. And if you want to look head to toe hot and just go all out, you know what? Do it. But if you don't want to get overwhelmed, just find that one thing, whether it's a blazer, whether it's a piece of jewelry, whether you said something about my earrings when we walked in, and it's like, so that's how I know these are a conversation starter, because that was the first thing you said when I walked in.
They're so good. I love them.
Thanks. They're pretty bold. They're pretty chunky. But so that's what we always say, to feel really confident when you walk in the door and just strike up more conversations and more relationships.
I love that. So say you wear your one conversation starter, and then where would you say to go from there?
As far as like communication or what aspect?
Yeah.
So I would always say, introduce yourself, say thank you, introduce yourself, and then ask about them, ask what they do. Start a conversation about, more than likely you're probably, at a business conference or an event or something like that. But even if you're not, if you're in the grocery store and somebody says, oh my gosh, I love your blazer, or oh my gosh, I love your sneakers, because you might be in athletic clothes when you're at the grocery store. But strike up a conversation, and just like we did that exercise with your amazing cards, you know, don't be talking about the weather. Yeah. If you want to talk about the weather, knock your socks off.
Talk about my shoes.
But yeah, exactly. But you can actually like strike up a conversation with somebody at a deeper level, because that's what's really just creating the deeper relationship, and that's how we make more connections. And like I said, it leads to sales. And at the end of the day, we're wanting to make more money, because when we make more money, we make a greater impact in this world. Yeah. And I truly believe just what you said. You know, it's like women who have more money, you can give more. We have the best hearts. Like we would give away everything for free, wouldn't we? More than likely. Everybody in this room shaking their head, yes, because we, like, that's women, right? Like, we just love to give, and we love to make other people happy. And so that is just like, you know, one of the things that I think a lot of women, and myself included, have had to get over is like, we want to make more money. Ask, because when you have more money, we do great things with it, just like you said.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, one of our mottos is, when money gets in the hands of good women, great things happen. Mm-hmm. And that is so true. I've seen it time and time again. And for us as women, we actually control 80% of the financial decisions in the household. And so what it looks like for us to get financial literacy and to make sales and to be okay with asking for money and raising our prices and all this stuff that sometimes a lot of women really struggle with. Oh, what happens when money actually gets in our hands? We have really good hearts. We want to serve those around us. We have to get money in our hands, right?
Yeah.
So it comes from, yes, like making sales and building trust and having those better conversations and getting in the room and connecting with those people that you really connect with and build that relational capital over time.
100%. So I have to ask you, because you're the queen of connections, right? Like you're the queen of creating
the few of us. Well, I'm one of them.
Yeah, well, we'll just say
I'm fine sharing. I can share. I learned how to share in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Or kindergarten.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you is like, so in a situation like that, if somebody came up and was like, oh my God, I love your shoes, you want to keep that conversation rolling, what would be a question that you would ask somebody just randomly if they compliment you on your wardrobe? What's something that you would ask them immediately without knowing this person, just to like continue the conversation where it's very comfortable and smooth and not awkward?
Yeah, well, I love this question. I think it actually stems from, there's almost a precursor to being open to either asking questions or receiving more questions from a conversation starter. And I actually think it comes from the foundation of being okay with being inconvenienced, right? Because a lot of times we are so busy, we are so go. We got like back-to-back meetings and we've got the whatever, and all of a sudden someone compliments me on my shoes and I don't have time for you and thanks so much and I'm on to my next thing. So it actually, in order to have better conversations and to be open to what could lead into like whatever it leads into from my cute shoes, is the willingness to be inconvenienced, the willingness to be interrupted, the willingness to say, ooh, okay, actually, I'm going to pause here for a minute and I'm going to have a conversation. And so one thing that has helped me get to that point is to actually leave more space in my calendar and to not be so busy and back to back, right? Because there's actually a difference in being busy versus being effective. I'm not interested in being busy, I'm interested in being effective. I'm interested in not running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I'm interested in like my life being full, not busy. And people might hate this, but I actually correct them when they're like, oh, your life is so busy. I'm like, it's not busy, actually, it's full.
I say the same thing. I say it too, because people message me out there, like, I know you're so busy. And I'm like, no, we all have time for things that we want to do. Yeah. And our calendar may be full, but it's because that's what we're prioritizing. Yeah. So, yeah.
So I think that that's a precursor to being okay with then being interrupted to then lead into whatever question that goes next. But I think back to what you were saying, it actually gets into being a really good listener. And I think when you can walk into a room and you can be the most interested person instead of the most interesting, like, yes, show up in a room, own the room, like show up with amazing energy, be responsible for the energy that you bring into the room. If you have a really bad day, leave your bad day at the door, be responsible for the energy that you bring into the room, right? Because that speaks like more like it speaks volumes. Your energy actually speaks volumes more than what your voice ever does, more than what your words ever do. So be responsible for the energy that you bring to the room, and then be really interested in someone else. And so that's like, oh, like, what's your story? Or one of my favorite questions, and it can be a little tricky, and we actually did it in this room, but it was, oh, what's life teaching you right now? And
that's good.
It's a good one, and it can kind of mess with people a little bit, because it's like, oh, I actually have to get a little bit vulnerable here. And I like, oh, you're not going to talk to me about the weather, right? Because most of us default to the weather, most of us default to whatever these crappy questions that we have somehow been taught to talk about when we walk into a room. But there was a poll that was done, and it's like 70 to 80% of people actually hate those really stupid surface questions that we all default to. And so if we can actually learn what it looks like to ask better questions, and then when we can get brave with our answer, because a conversation is a two-way road, then we can actually create better connection. And so I have a freebie if you guys are listening to this. If you go to businessbubbly.com/questions, I'll give you for free 50 of my favorite networking questions. businessbubbly.com/questions. And it's like really, really great conversation starters. But some of my favorite are like, oh, so what's your story? Or what's life teaching you right now?
You know what's interesting when you say that? I'm thinking about, all these events and things like that. Like sometimes we're so used to just talking to other people and not really talking about ourselves either. When somebody's like, how are you? And we're just, you're like, good, and you keep running, and just kind of blow over it.
Yeah.
But then it's like, whoa, like actually, how are you? And then, sometimes it strikes up tears, right? Because you're like, oh, I don't actually know the last time that somebody has asked me, how are you? Like really, how are you? Yeah. And it can be uncomfortable sometimes, because most of the time we're just used to, right over it.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, I always, not everybody agrees with me. 70 to 80% don't agree with me on this probably. But I know people are like, the weather, where are you from, and all that. I actually like to flip it on its head with the where are you from question. I love asking and talking to people about where they're from, because it says something about them. I'm from Scottsdale. This is just talking about, I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona now, but I'm from Iowa. So for me, it's a connection piece to when you live in a transplant city, a lot of people are from other places, but instantly when you ask somebody where they're from, you immediately get to know something more about them. And you can ask them a question piggybacking off of that into deeper about, oh, wow, what made you move here? And then you learn something new about oh, so your family lived here. Okay, so you're a family person. You start to learn more about this. So I don't think it's always that bad when you ask people, and I know we were talking about the weather, that can get a little bit boring, but especially in Scottsdale and sunny all the time, we don't really have much to talk about. But yeah. But I do think the other question that always pairs with that weather question, I feel like, is, oh, where are you from? But I always like going deeper with that, because you learn more about people's character, what they value, and a little bit more too, but could be about their business. It could have been because of their job. So I always like flipping that question on its head, because 70-80% of the world doesn't agree with me.
No, I love that though. But that you seek out and draw out the deeper information from that basic surface question.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Okay, pause for a minute. Sorry, editors, but is this
recording?
Is this recording? Because yours is blue and mine's red.
Oh, I don't know.
I just want to make sure. I talk really loud, but I just want to make sure.
I don't know.
Are we good?
I have no clue.
Okay.
Once we can push some buttons and figure it out.
Is it blue?
Blue.
Okay.
Hey.
Hey. We're in business. Now my voice is loud. Okay. Back at it. Technical difficulties. Yeah. Now we're done.
We can totally do it. It's fine.
I think it's fine. I don't know. If they didn't hear that, well,
hey, it's all right.
Business Bubbly and the Tori Kruse Show. Charity majors, Tori Kruse.
Good segue. Good.
Yeah, right. We're back. Okay. I think my mic was off this whole time, but if it wasn't, then it's all right too.
Hey, that's all right. Maybe mine will pick it up. And maybe that will pick it up too.
I don't know. Who knows? Okay, so let's see. Going back. So we actually, one of the things when I first met you that was really, really awesome was Charity's presence. Like, I think it's so, like, is her presence not just like contagious, like her energy and vibrancy and life. And so when I first walked into the room, I was like, my girl, like, we're going to be friends, you know, because you're just like, you were super vibrant and your presence. I think there's something to be said about that, like having a powerful presence, but also being like a there you are sort of chick instead of like, here am I, you know?
Yeah.
And so I honor and respect that about you so much. And I love how you show up in rooms. And so I want to hear from your perspective also, because you were in pageants.
Yeah.
Right? And we had that part in common a little bit.
Yeah, and Tori was in pageants too. I was in pageants.
Yeah. So I was Miss Missouri USA in 2018 and competed at Miss USA in 2018, and then tell everybody what you...
Yeah, so I was Mrs. Idaho, Mrs. of the Americas, and then competed at Mrs. World in the top 6.
Yeah.
World. That's pretty fun too. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we like, when you're kind of in that world of pageantry, there's a lot of, I mean, it's a lot about your presence, right? Like you're a lot external image, but it takes a lot of internal work to get to the point of competing at the national and, you know, international level.
Yeah.
But I think there's a huge part about like your presence and poise. And so why don't you talk a little bit about that? Like, I'm sure you knew because you were in the Mrs. division, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you probably had a lot of that like poise. Like, where did your like poise and presence aspect, like where did you learn the importance of that?
It actually came before pageants. Pageants was almost this, I guess I would say like environment that I went in to almost in a good way test the personal growth that I had done before. And I had an interesting journey in pageants because I actually dove in, I won like boom, 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 like right away. I was in it for 3 years and then I was out. But a lot of people, and they call that in the pageant world like a black horse. But I came in because a lot of women, they try for years and years and years to try and win these different titles. But I had actually done a lot of personal growth and done a lot of the internal work beforehand, so that all of a sudden, like, when we're put into pressure situations, what's underneath is actually going to come out. And I think a lot of times, especially when we walk into rooms like this.
Wait, hold on a second. What's underneath, when we're put in pressure situations, what's underneath is what's going to come out.
Yeah.
Write that down.
Somebody needs to mean that, all right?
Yeah, that's really good. That's why I had to repeat it. I'm like, wait, we can't skip over that. That was really good.
Thanks. And so it's like, oh, okay, the internal work that I've done, when I'm put under stress and I'm put under pressure, whatever that looks like, oh, that's going to come out. And so I heard this before, one of my mentors, she said that actually either lack of confidence and a feeling of not enough, or, oh, I don't have what it takes, those are actually just unanswered identity questions. And when we are solid in our identity and who we are and whose we are and what we stand for and the mission that we're on, you can actually show up fully into a room and not feel insecure. And my heart, one of my personal missions is to actually build big people, right? So big followings, big whatever, lots of downloads, all that thing. I'm actually more interested in like those, sure, like those are nice fancy metrics, kind of like monopoly money, but
well, you're impacting more people when you have the numbers too, but
yeah, and I'm actually really interested in building big people.
Yeah.
And what it looks like is being able to walk into a room and stand next to giants without feeling insecure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And a lot of that comes from that internal game of answering the identity questions of, oh, who am I? What am I here to do? Why am I here? What mission am I on? What have I been called to? What am I created for? Right? And when you actually can answer those, it doesn't matter. Like, I can stand next to Tori and not feel like I have to compare and whatever, and like, oh my gosh, maybe I should do what she's doing. And like, no, I'm actually really confident in what I'm doing, and she's confident in what she's doing because we're really solid in our identity. Mm-hmm. And so when you know who you are, when you know whose you are, when you are confident in what you're called to, it allows you to walk into the room and to say, oh, like, I don't get caught in comparison, I don't get caught in not enough, and I don't have what it takes, and oh my gosh, like, what is she wearing, and oh my gosh, what am I wearing, and that, like, oh, and I'm like feeling really insecure about the whatever else. Actually, I can just show up fully, and I can focus in on the amazing person that's right in front of me, because I want to get to know, who you are and what you stand for.
Hey, Hey, just a quick little invitation here for you to give one of my new favorite products a try. It's called Glossy, and if you know anything about me, that you know that I love to share things that I love. I love to talk about the things that I love that I'm using, whether it's new products, new services, fun books that I'm sharing about. So I'm always on the hunt for new products that help with high performance, that help me not only as a business owner, as a founder, as a speaker, as a podcaster, and even as a mom feel better, but it's got to be able to fit into my daily routine. And I have found one that is like my new obsession. It's called Glossy. It's a skin and a gut daily ritual supplement. It's a skin routine that you can drink. Not only does it taste amazing, like a light, refreshing lemon spa water that I could drink all day, seriously, but it's making me feel so recharged and like I'm feeding my body and skin everything it needs to keep up with me and my goals. It has a clinically studied probiotic in it that survives the trip to your gut so that you know that it's working, along with hyaluronic acid, which is incredible for glowy, hydrated look to your skin. And on top of that, it's loaded with skin-loving ingredients like zinc, magnesium, vitamin C, coconut water powder, minerals, electrolytes, and antioxidants. It's how I love to actually start my day as well as end my day, because when I wake up in the morning, I actually get the feeling that I feel less bloated, which, hello, is amazing. So for real, this is a game changer, especially if you travel, if you're busy, and if you have to have something that help you support your body while you are going after your big ideas. So if you want glowing skin and a happy gut, go grab your subscription, because it's the best results take 30 to 60 days. You can go to getglossy.com. That's GETGLOCI.com, and use my coupon code CharityMajors for an awesome discount. Now, understand that this product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. But again, that's all the official legal stuff, right? Go to getglossy.com and grab your skin and gut supplement, because great skin starts from within. That's at getglossy, GETGLOCI.com, and use my coupon code CharityMajors. Grab your subscription today. You are going to love it. I have no doubt. Go to getglossy.com and use the coupon code CharityMajors. Now, back to the show.
Okay, so what did you do during those times, like in the past, before you knew? Like, what did you do to get out? Like, if you did start to compare yourself to somebody, what did you do to get out of that, like, mindset? You're like, oh, no, like, this doesn't belong here, right?
Yeah.
Are there any, I love making some good action steps here.
Yeah. Well, I used to really be insecure. I used to really struggle with a lot of limiting beliefs. And what I actually realized, and this will go a little bit off topic as far as business, but I used to be able to walk into rooms and I would hear a bunch of limiting beliefs and a bunch of, oh, I don't feel like I'm not enough, and gosh, what am I wearing, blah, 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 blah. And what I actually, how do I say, it really used to affect me as far as feeling insecure. And I went from being a really fun, bubbly, vibrant, younger kid to the girl hiding in the corner because I was so afraid to say something that would offend someone. I was so afraid of, oh my gosh, like I didn't know who I was, and people kind of like that girl, so maybe I should just dress like that girl, maybe I should just act like that girl, because maybe, and so I put on a bunch of masks, and I put on a bunch of people pleasing, and I put on a bunch of perfectionism and all this different stuff. And so I actually had to almost go through a phase of unbecoming all the stuff that people said about me, unbecoming of all the stuff I said about myself, unbecoming of all the things that society said I should be, I should do this, I should do that. So I actually had to like stop shoulding all over myself and actually get really clear on who I was. And for me, as a Christ follower, I know the Business Bubbly podcast isn't faith-based, I know yours is faith-based, but for me, I actually had to really understand who God called me, who He had made me to be. Yeah. And so for me, it actually it took going to the one that created me, to know what he created me for, to be confident in that, right? And so all of a sudden when I got my identity, when I started to know who I was and whose I was.
Game changer.
Game changer.
Yeah. I've written down too, like in those moments where I feel like doubt or fear or any insecurity pops up or unworthiness or any of that. I mean, we're all human, right? So it's still like, even though I've done decades of work through that, it still pops up because, you know, we're human and like different. I mean, I remember there was a room I was going into last year and I was like, do I make enough money to get into this room?
For sure.
You know? And I went and then I got into the room and I was like, what was I thinking? Like, who cares? You know, like we put these like limiting beliefs on ourselves and they're not true. And so when that happens, you know, of course I go back to who God says I am. But whether it's God or maybe you're somebody who just needs like some other just tactical step, like I always, when I'm in those moments, I just write down like all the blessings that I've had in my life. And I write down the gratitudes that I've had in my life. And I distract my brain because sometimes our brains like they go down like this negative path.
Yeah.
When all we need to do is like take a minute and 10 minutes and just restructure and like start talking about like gratitude. You know, start writing down all the blessings. Start writing down everything that has happened in your life that has been good.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody's had bad things. Everybody's had fears and challenges and sad moments and disbelief and unworthiness. And so I think, you know, in those moments, just like, let's flip it over, flip the script on yourself. Write down 10 things you're grateful for. If 10 things still doesn't do it and you're, you know, in a funk, then write 10 more until you're not in a funk anymore.
Yeah.
And just writing down what you're grateful for, the blessings and the beautiful things that have already happened in your life. Think about things. Everybody's gotten a compliment from at least one person in life, right? Hopefully hundreds. But start really thinking, because sometimes we forget about that stuff, you know? And it can kind of get in your head, and then it starts to affect your business. Then it starts to affect your family life. And so it's a trickle effect. So those are just some of the things that I like to do as well.
Yeah, I love that. Another example that's coming up for me, I like to call this actually living from a call and not a circumstance. So recently I had the opportunity of speaking on stage with Dean Graciosi and Chris and Lori Harder. And I remember as I was prepping for this major speaking event, I started to feel nervous and, oh my gosh, like, who am I to do this and whatever and all this different stuff. And I just remember sitting there, I was like, no, I'm actually called to be a voice. Living from a circumstance means, oh, who's on stage and who's in the room and who's in the whatever, right? That's the circumstance of where I was speaking at, compared to, no, I'm actually called to be a voice. I'm actually called to connect people and to create community. And so even understanding, like, it's actually like remind my soul, right? Because we're mind, body, and spirit, or soul, body, and spirit. And so actually remind my soul that I'm called to do these things. Because our souls are emotions, and those where our emotions are good, it's the language of the heart, but they're meant to be passengers, not drivers. And my emotions don't dictate my call. My emotions don't dictate my calendar. My emotions don't dictate like what I do in the day. It is. But I remind my soul, like, oh, this is what I'm called to. I'm actually called to be a voice. And so my soul has to come into alignment with the higher call that's on my life, instead of my soul and my emotions like running rampant. No, I don't feel like going to the gym today. Actually, my goals dictate, my feelings don't. Actually, my call dictates, my feelings don't.
That's been a hard thing to get to though, right? Like, it wasn't just overnight where...
Oh, for sure.
Because, you know, women too, like, we're filled with emotion. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel like right now there's this thing going around that's like the masculine role, the feminine role, like women, you know, ambitious women, like sometimes we need to like soften up our masculine alpha female energy, right? Because then it's like, because sometimes we're blocking other things. I don't know. There's this whole masculine feminine thing that's going on, I feel like, in society. But
if you subscribe to that,
right? Exactly. But I don't think exactly. But but listening to your emotions as women, I don't think is always a good thing.
Right.
Our emotions are a beautiful thing, but they don't always serve our goals.
Totally.
So what you just said about your goals, you know, running your calendar and not your emotions is just spot on completely. And the part where I bring up like the masculine and feminine roles that like I think a lot of people are talking about right now is like having women listen to their feelings a little bit more, listen to their emotions. I'm like, crap, if I did that, like I would be sitting on the montage, you know, on the beach every single day. But that's just not reality. So,
for sure.
But no, you really do. You have to listen to your goals and not your emotions. And it's like, there's a time and place, I think, for that as women.
For sure.
But when it comes to business, I think you know, we do have to step up. And if you want the life that you really feel called to, listening to your goals is huge. Yeah. So I love that you bring that up. I also thought of something when you were saying that just kind of like popped in my mind was, I think sometimes a lot of women think like, you know, who am I? You know, like kind of what you're just saying, speaking, but you know, Instagram, the social media world right now, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have that many followers. Like I'm not impacting anybody. I'm telling you what, you're impacting the person who is checking you out at the counter at the boutique that you're shopping at or the grocery store. You're impacting that person. So how you show up, it doesn't matter if you have 2 followers on social media. I don't care if you have 100 or if you have 100,000 or 1 million. You are literally impacting somebody every single day. So never think that you are not, like, don't never think that you are not impacting the world just because you don't have this social media following. It doesn't matter. And so I just want to remind you that you're worthy of every single step that you're taking and every single person that you're talking to, you're influencing in one way or another.
Yeah, I love that. I think it even just goes right back to the being okay, being open for inconvenience.
Yeah, that's good.
Right, to then ask the questions.
Charity just has a way of words, doesn't she?
Thanks. It's kind of my thing.
It's kind of my thing. It's kind of what I do.
It's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, just being open to inconvenience and asking those really good questions. And
all right, so I got a question. Like 2025 is on the horizon. I don't know when both these podcasts are going to be, you know, if it's already going to be 2025 or if we're publishing in 2024. But I think this is such an interesting time right now. Like, we just had elections, so weird. That was interesting. But we're in such an interesting time in our country for sure. But then an interesting time where I was really going with this is like in the new year, right? Like new year, new you, all of this. Like, how do you tee yourself up for success? Like as we're like coming in, you know, we're in Q4, we're like winding down the year, but you want to like really start 2025. It's just like new you know, like it's such a refreshing time of year. So is there anything specifically that you do to like really step into that like next version that you really feel called to?
Oh, I think for me, when it comes to a new year, I actually don't say like new year, new me. I like to say new year, better me or more me, right? New year, more me. And part of that is I actually don't think that I need to be new. Like, I don't think, you know, like I love who I am. I love the mission that I'm on. I'm really solid in my core values. And those are actually what dictate me and my actions. And so when it comes to core values, it's like, oh, those actually help me make decisions, right? So, and that actually has to be reflected in my calendar. So for example, one of my core values is that my family is one of the most important things to me. And that looks like, oh, I actually allocate specific time. Are there seasons where it's a little bit busier and, you know, like even like this weekend, is it a little bit more business compared to a little bit more family? Yes, my family's here with me on this trip. And this is a little bit more of a business trip. So there are seasons of that, but my family actually, I'm not willing to build something or to grow something that will leave them in the dust. I'm not willing to build something that will plow them over. I'm not willing to build something or to put energy and effort into something that does not keep the first things first. And so it's like, okay, I take a look at my core values and like who I am, what I'm called to do. Will that grow and expand, right? So for example, I know I'm called to be a voice. Will that show up in a podcast? Will that show up in a YouTube channel? Will that show up on stage and with a microphone? Will that show up in teaching or equipping? Or I have a women's ministry and teaching women to be prophetic voices. So will it show up in those different facets? Yes. And it still won't ever come before my core values of my family being first. And so another example, as we look into next year, one of the things, it's like, I think a lot in the personal development world, there's kind of this, like, let fear be your guide.
Oh gosh.
And I used to say that because
I don't partner with that.
I know.
Yeah.
And I used to say that because yes, we have to get out of our comfort zones, but it's like, okay, am I like getting out of my comfort zone? Like, am I scared crapless about this thing, or is it gonna like? It almost kind of goes back to okay, what's underneath is gonna come out when I put it under pressure. So what do I want to come out intentionally in this next season? Like, what is being drawn out in me in this next season? I also do, from a faith-based perspective, it's called God's Plan for Your Year, and that's actually is what I don't like plan and pray anymore. I like make my own plans and then just like pray over it one day that God's gonna just like bless it. I actually get God's plan for my year, and then I partner with Him in that. And so actually that's how I plan my events. That's how I plan like when my next book is coming out. That's how I plan a few different things for my next year. One of the things that I am challenging myself in is a TED Talk for 2025, which would be really fun. It doesn't make me nervous to do it. It's more so because it's so short and I have to be very, very like memorized instead of a little bit more off the cuff.
One of your greatest gifts. So, 18-minute TED Talk.
I know, that's the part that challenges me, but it'll be good.
Yeah. That's interesting. I always love hearing that. Isn't that so interesting, right? Like when you hear like going into a new year, thinking of like how different people, especially high achievers like yourself, like are planning it out. And I completely agree. Like there's a part where I think some people are in a space where it's like new year, new me. Like we are leaving everything of 2024 was crap. We are like recreating ourselves, but then there's other people who are like, all right, 2024 was pretty good, right? Like, and then like, let's just make a couple different tweaks. And then there's, people like kind of, what you were just saying where it's like, no, I'm in a really solid spot. And then, we're just kind of going to coast in 2025, but keep these core values high. And then here's some extra goals that we're going to just like add to. So I just think it's always interesting because everybody's in such a different place when it comes to a new year. And it can be just such a time of like motivation and inspiration. It's really fun. Yeah. I always like to start now instead of 2025, or the new year.
Totally.
Like if there's
what we do now actually shows up in Q1.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. And I don't think I understood that for a really long time when it came to just personal or business. But now it's like, okay, yeah, I learned that in pageantry because it was 8 years before I competed 6 times, but I trained for 8 total years.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't when I was placed in semifinalists, and every single year, like year after year, I was like, what in the world am I doing wrong? Like, why am I not winning this thing? I'm going to be too old pretty soon. I'm going to age out.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're either going to crown me or I'm going to age out. Like, I'm just not giving up, And then thank God I ended up winning. But it was those years where I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why am I not getting to the goal that I want to get to? And it's starting to become like super frustrating. And then I was like, oh, I forgot I have to train all year. Like, I have to do this. I have to be Miss USA. I have to be Miss Missouri USA before I was her.
Oh, totally.
And so like becoming that person right now. So like, I just encourage anybody listening or anybody in this room, like if you're wanting to become this certain person in 2025, start being her right now. Yeah. Like I'm talking when you step outside of this door, when you turn off this podcast and, start being that person immediately because then you are actually going to be her in the new year.
Yeah, and it's those actions that you take that actually give you the confidence to embody what it is that you're stepping into. And even one of the things that we look for with our chapter directors is, are they already building community? Are they already the gatherers? Are they already, people who are like supporting women? And when I worked in corporate, one of the things that we did within culture, and I would help companies develop their different employee wellness programs and different things like that, we would have what's called a readiness to change questionnaire. And so say if someone came into an employee wellness program and they applied for it and they had 50 pounds to lose, but they were just still sitting on their couch and smoking cigarettes and eating donuts and not doing anything to change, they're not ready and willing to change. But if someone applies and they got their gym membership and they're maybe walking around their block and they're doing a couple even minor things that show that they're willing to change, we accepted them.
Yeah.
It's because we actually have to get to a point where we're willing to take action. And so what's that point for you? What are you willing to take action on? What's either the pleasure or the pain that you need to move away from or towards them to get you to move into action. But it really is that same, it's that concept of, oh, okay, if I know I'm meant to be a voice, or I know I'm meant to be an author, I have to write.
Yep.
Right?
It is, this whole, you just nailed it completely. That's exactly what I did. And then I won the next year.
Yeah.
Because I placed first runner up, and I was like, what's going to get me over the hump?
Yeah.
What's going to do it? And so I moved out to LA, and we're in Orange County right now filming this, but I moved out to LA and Airbnb hopped for 8 months, and I wanted to be a sports reporter at the time. So I'm like, here I am sitting in the Miss Missouri interviews every single year telling them, because they're always like, all right, what are you going to do if you're Miss Missouri? And I'm like, I would tell them what I'm going to do, but it just hit me after I placed first runner up. I'm like, oh, I have to do it. And so, but nobody else was doing it. We were just, all of us contestants, like all 50 of us, 52 of us, we were just like telling everybody, hey, this is what I'm going to do when I win, but nobody had the proof. And so it's something just like a light bulb moment, and I was like, all right, done. I quit my sales job in St. Louis. I still had my residency there. I got Airbnbs in Los Angeles and Airbnb hopped. I created my own at-home sports reporting studio. Nice. I would watch the sports games on, I don't even know if you know this story.
No, I love
it. And so I was like, all right, how am I going? I have no experience in the sports reporting world, but I keep telling them like I'm going to be a sports reporter. And so I was like, I researched, New York and LA were like the top places for sports reporting. Moved out to LA. I built an at-home studio. You guys, I seriously went to Party City. And I got some fake turf because I love football.
Yes. This is why we're friends.
Yeah, it seriously is. Like, this is really turf.
Maybe I should get you the plant that is our love child, our fern.
Okay.
But it will be turf and you'll never have to.
See, that's it. That's the kicker. This is our friendship class. I was still kind of nervous about this live plant thing. So I did. I went to Party City right when I moved to LA, and I got fake turf. I got a basketball hoop, and I put it up on the wall. And I already had my golf club, so I'm like, I bought a football and I had a basketball, and I went out and I got a microphone. I got this long black cord that connected to my phone, this tripod, videoed everything on my phone. So what I would do was I would sit there in my living room and I would watch the football game and I would take notes. And then at halftime, I would go do my hair and makeup, put on my heels, put on my dress. And then after the game was over, I would step right over, here's my living room. I stepped right over here to the left to my at-home studio on my turf with my heels and my dress. I created a brand called Highlights and Heels. And I made an Instagram handle, all this thing.
Is it still active?
I think I still have it. Yeah. My company was named, now it's Tori Kruse Enterprises, but my company, when I started my business after Miss USA, was called Highlights and Heels.
I love it.
Yeah. And my sports reporting brand was Highlights and Heels, and I'd be like standing on my turf in my living room and at my Airbnb, and I was like, reporting live, this is Tori Kruse with Highlights and Heels, reporting on the Falcons versus the Chiefs, and I would like give sports highlights. And then I put it all into iMovie. And this is this was the funniest part, was that back then I had no idea. This was 2017. So it's crazy how much can change and evolve.
Yes.
Yeah. But I didn't know to put my phone, because I'm recording it all on my phone, I didn't know to put it vertical or horizontal. So I didn't even pay attention to it. So some of my videos were vertical, some were horizontal.
Nice.
I don't know if you know, but if you're listening to this or, in the room, make sure it's horizontal because otherwise you have like black space on the side, and if you're ever on your phone doing any sort of video, make sure it's horizontal. So I had a mix of both, and I'm doing all these sports highlights like basketball, golf, football. The Olympics were going on then, and I remember I put it all into iMovie and I sent it off to Fox Sports, and I was like, I'm gonna be a reporter on Fox Sports. I ended up getting an interview with the hiring manager at Fox Sports, who hired Aaron Andrews. And I think he just respected the hustle. I mean, I don't think it was because it was like so like the video. I look back now and I love sharing this video because it's hilarious because it's so not professional. But at the same time, it's like people just want to see you start.
Yeah.
So you just have to sometimes step outside of your comfort zone, just make it happen. And you have to, so my point in sharing that story with you is because I wanted to be a sports reporter. I had no experience, but I had to get experience somehow. And so it's like, I had to be her before I was her and just put one foot in front of the other. And I ended up doing modeling jobs all over LA, like during that time too, because I was doing a lot of like runway modeling and print modeling, because I knew that doing that would help me become Miss Missouri, because I'm on camera all the time.
Yeah.
And I had to learn my different like poses and angles and and speak on camera. And so that's what I took hosting courses. So the reason why I tell you this whole LA journey is because I came out to LA to become her before I was actually Miss Missouri. So then I knew, I was like, flipping this to your guys' story. If you're wanting to do something, if you're wanting to become someone, start thinking like, what are the skills that you have to learn in order to be that person that you're desiring to become, and go find them and go start doing those skills. Because then when I came back and competed for Miss Missouri, I ended up winning that year. And I had this new sense of confidence about myself, not in an arrogant way, a new sense of like, oh, I've already done this, you know? So then when I was speaking about it, so when you guys are all speaking about like, you have this huge dream, you're going to gain this just undeniable confidence in yourself, because you've already done it. So then once that dream gets there, once you do win, or once you do achieve that goal, you're going to be like, oh, I've already been here before. It's because you've done it.
Oh, I love that so much. It's so good.
It gets me excited talking about that. Like, I can do it all over again. Let me just, but yeah.
That's why you just have to get married, then you can do Mrs. and
no, pageantry, I'm out. I was like, my goal was Miss USA, and once I got to Miss USA, I'm like, you know what? Thank the good Lord. I'm good. Yeah. That was just like that was like what I felt like was good, but Mrs. not.
I love it. Well, I feel like we could talk forever and ever and ever, so we'll just have to do this more.
Yes,
but
I agree.
I just want to thank you for being here. As you look back at your journey from where you are, I was love to end with a good question, but as you look back at your journey, if you could go back to the beginning and tell younger Tori anything about like what you learned, like what you wish you could learn or know back then, what would you tell them?
Act like your biggest breakthrough is just one day away. Because it truly is.
Yeah.
It truly is. And so if you just wake up every single day and you just already believe that it is done, it is. And if you walk in faith every single day, and you put one foot in front of the other, and you just believe that it is done, and you are living your dream and your goals like right now, you walk with a different swagger about you. You really do. And a different belief in yourself, because what you desire is already here. You just have to believe it.
Yeah. That's so good.
All right, your turn. What would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self that, and this is a little bit more faith-based for those that are listening, so just FYI, that the actual, like the highest pinnacle is actually a daughter, right? It's not speaker, it's not author, it's not founder, it's not wife, it's not mom, it's not anything. For me, is a daughter of God, that's the pinnacle, like as far as identity, as far as title, as far as quote unquote like achievement, whatever it is that I could be called, because I put a lot of weight in what's called a secondary identity of what we do instead of who we be and who we're called to be and who we are. And so for me, it's like, oh, like all of that stuff actually is a shaky foundation. Yeah. But when you can actually put your weight, like the pinnacle is daughter. So,
amen to that. Well, thank you so much for having me and having me on Business Bubbly and getting to actually be here live with all of you ladies. This is so awesome. We got to do some Q&A, right?
We do.
Questions
before we wrap it up?
Not all at once. Not all at once.
I wrote this down because I thought it was awesome what you said. What you desire is already here.
Yeah.
So, how do you wake up every day and say, what I desire is already here, if you don't know how to get there? Am I making sense?
Yeah. So, number one, I'm rooted in faith. So I believe that God already has it done. And He knows the desires of your heart. And it's already complete because He's the one who created you. and he put that dream already in your heart. So he's working for you. So for me, if I'm surrendered to his plan, I just trust and like let it go. As far as like a tangible action step, what I love to do is I am statements. So again, gratitude. So I always say, for me, I put it on a faith-based version, but you can just say, I am grateful for, or God, thank you for. I start with gratitude, but then I'm also like, I am. So that is something that's powerful just to get me to start believing. So whatever, you want to believe is already done. If you're having a tough time believing that, I would write down, I am, and write down the outcome like it's already done. And just write it as if it's already done. Because once you think it, you write it on paper, you start to believe it a lot more.
I also love the understanding of, I'll give this example, so of almost just like being patient enough to get to the destination in your timeline. And so, for example, we sold our house and we were looking for another house, and we were renting and all this different stuff, and it was like we put in multiple offers on these other houses that we thought were going to be great. We put in an offer on on land to build, and it was a closed door, and then it was all of a sudden bing 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 down our timeline 8 months later. It was almost like I had this like picture in my mind of, oh, we actually just had to get to this February whatever date of 2023, and that was our house, right? So I kind of like, do we have to do the offers and whatever to get there? Yes. Like closed door, but we just had to like get to that point in the timeline when the door was going to be open. So sometimes it's like, oh, like, yes, like you're saying, like trust the process, knock on the doors, like do what it is that you need to do in the midst of the journey of what it is that you desire, and like the door that's meant to be open for you is going to open.
I do want to say too that I've always lived by the motto, every no is one step closer to your yes.
Yeah.
So every single no that you get, instead of getting like super discouraged or really down, just like, whew, thanks, got that one out of the way. Now I'm one step closer to my yes.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you no longer plan your year and then pray upon it. You plan your year with God. How do you do that exactly?
Yeah, so I actually I've been doing this for 4 years now, but I developed what are called prophetic prompts. So they're basically like asking God certain questions every single month. That's when I sit down and I look at my calendar for the next year, and I ask certain questions every single month and journal what he tells me. And so then, so for example, like I knew when our house was going to sell, and we literally, like after a year of trying to sell our house, it sold, and we were literally signing papers in the exact month that was in my calendar. And so it was like I didn't have to worry, like, because, I knew it was going to happen then. And then I asked for certain signs that I'm in that certain month or in that certain season for it. And so I asked certain questions. I'm actually hosting a workshop on the 20th and leading people through this to be able to do that. But yeah, it's asking God what his plan is, asking the signs so that I know that I'm there. And every single month the signs have shown up. And so then all of a sudden, like for another example is I do ministry events with faith-based women, and the sign that he gives me when it's time to do some of those events are rainbows and balloons, because that's the brand of it. And so that's when I know, okay, perfect. April is a Meant for More Ministries event, and and October is a Meant for More Ministries event, because he'll give me those signs, or he'll point those different the journal prompts that way. So
I just want to piggyback off that too. So I remember there was a time where I was like, well, how do you know the signs, or like how do you hear, see the signs? And so for me, it's really like getting quiet, like finding that quiet time. It's right when I wake up in the morning, I grab a cup of coffee and I sit at the corner of my couch and I put this beautiful backdrop on my TV and I just sit there in silence. Sometimes I put on worship music, and it's just like kind of filling the room with the Holy Spirit, right? Like with the worship music. And then, depending on kind of what I'm feeling, is either worship music or when I sit in silence, it's just really thinking, like really asking God and closing your eyes and like getting away all distractions and just speaking to him like you were saying. And it's just like getting all the distractions away, asking him a direct question of like, hey God, this is kind of what I think. I like talk to him like your best friend.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, hey, I think this is what I'm hearing from you, but is this right? Or is this just my own, human desire that I'm wanting, right? Or human outcome? So I'll just be like, is this from you? If so, like, can you show me a vision of like a sign that I'm supposed to be looking for, just to confirm that this is from you? And so, every single time, like if you just sit there, just like whatever the first thing is that like kind of comes to your mind, like the vision. For me, it's been like, I've been praying about moving to Texas, and God showed me a cowboy hat. Like that was the first thing that came to mind. And so I was like, all right, I think it's a cowboy hat. Cowboy, like if I see a cowboy hat, I mean I'm moving to Texas, So like this is like layers deep, but think about that like image that like God, like just ask God to like reveal an image to you or speak to you in some way, and just see like in the silent moment like what he says in your mind, and just listen to it and then go from there. So I think sometimes it's like always it can be challenging to be like, well, how do you hear? Or how do you know it's rainbows?
We're definitely hardwired to recognize and respond to how God communicates. And we can be hearers, seers, healers, or knowers. And so those seers, it's almost like love languages. If you have those gifts, like a love language you typically have in your couple
I think I'm all
that you operate with. I know,
maybe that's why I'm single. Shoot.
I mean,
she's like, that's a whole other podcast. We gotta go through therapy for that one.
But we could be seers, so that's like if you have a really vivid dream life, or if you could just get like flashes of pictures in your mind, or something like if you're reading something that pops off the page, like that's a way that God can speak to you. Another way is being a hearer, so that's more like the still small voice or the audible voice of God that you might hear,
or like through people
huge. When they're speaking or they're like sharing something, or something really gets highlighted to you, you're like, oh, like this is really standing out to me and when I'm listening to it. Another way is feelers. So those of us who are feelers, we can like walk into a room, or you can be next to someone, you're like, I'm feeling all the things that you're feeling right now, or I can like feel the energy of the room. And then knowers, those ones are like, you don't know how you know, but you just know that you know that you know. And so when we start to understand that those are the ways that God communicates, and those are all biblical, they're on my ministry page if you want to see it, you can ask me for it later, but they're, when you start to recognize, oh, this is actually God speaking to me right now.
Yeah. And
I'm going to like start to pay attention. I'm going to tune my spiritual ears or eyes or heart towards what it is that he's communicating and how he's communicating to me. And it just becomes like he's always speaking. Like only dysfunctional dads don't talk to their kids, so he's not ever silent.
And listen to your intuition every single time. I mean, I call it the Holy Spirit, but your intuition, like our intuition as women is impeccable.
Yeah.
I mean, I truly don't think my intuition's ever been wrong, like off. And I truly think that's like when the Holy Spirit's speaking to me. And so if your gut is telling you something, if your intuition is telling you something, listen to it. And I mean, my mom, I tell her this, but it pains me sometimes, but she's never been wrong, especially on relationships.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. I hope it brought some value and some fun into your business and life. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, and even share the episode with a fellow business bestie who you know will love it. It helps us continue to attract top-level guests and reach more and more women who are on their journey in business just like you. Remember that when money gets in the hands of good women, great things happen. Cheers to your success.